When you stare into the eyes of Rahotep and his wife, the first thing that everybody notices is the immediate contrast in skin color between the both of them. And of course, for most people, they have theories on why this is, especially those who study it deeply. For some, the yellowy skin color is merely a representation of some kind of metaphorical thing, whether it's spiritual or whether it has to do with wealth or something like that. For other people, it's literal, which means that that's the person's actual skin color. And for those people, I would say, comparing these two skin colors, do you not find it difficult to imagine that these two people would be the same phenotype, would be the same race as one? In order for the one person to turn the other skin color, it would take an excessive amount of heat, almost cancerous to someone that light skinned. But if you believe this, then what do you make of these? Now, as interesting as it is that there are ancient Egyptian women portrayed with dark skin, which would be expected in a nation where the women are dark skinned, the question that a lot of people ask themselves is, first of all, why don't we zoom into the faces and actually look at their faces? But let us have a contrast view so that we can see the differences between what ancient Egyptians look like and foreign lands. And I can't think of a better one than the ancient Romans and the ancient Greeks. So let's see. Before we start with the comparison, I want you to look at the statue. It's called the Kouros, and this statue was inspired by Egypt. But let's read what the holders of the statue had to say. This is one of the earliest marble statues of a human figure carved in Attica. The rigid stance with the left leg forward and arms at the side was derived from Egyptian art. The pose provided a clear, simple formula that was used by Greek sculptors throughout the 6th century BC. In this earlier figure, almost abstract, geometric forms predominate and anatomical details are rendered in beautiful analogous patterns. The statue marked the grave of a young Athenian aristocrat. Now, as you can see, it's doing that forward walk that a lot of ancient Egyptian statues have, and it's got this strong pose. Even the hair kind of mimics ancient Egyptian hair, braided. This is why I say this is the best one to use as an example of a contrast between how the Greco-Romans saw themselves and how the ancient Egyptians saw themselves. Because a lot of the Greco-Roman statues were depicting themselves in spite of the fact that they had seen how the ancient Egyptians portrayed themselves. So first we are going to compare the females. Now, something will jump out at you immediately. The skin colors look similar, but the similarities kind of end there. I would even argue that the noses are kind of similar. But if you look at the lips, and of course, if you look at the hair, the similarities start to break down. Now, the reason why I'm using this statue first is because it's probably the closest one that anyone will find of a female that will be as close to a European in all of Egypt. And even here, it starts to break down the similarities where the Caucasianness of the statue is broken. And of course, Kwelimika claims that Nofret was probably mixed, and that's good for him. Metatron claims that this person was Middle Eastern, and that's good for him. For me, this person is black, but they are portrayed in a whiter skin because this is a religious thing. And of course, I think these two statues of these people, Nofret and his wife, Nofret, who is the wife, this white woman here on the side, this white portrayal, they were found in a burial chamber. So this is a portrayal of someone in a spiritual context. But let's compare her to other ancient Egyptians and let's see if the similarities stay the same or do they break down further. See, now the similarities seem to break down even further. Notice that this statue of an Egyptian queen has a very broad nose. The nose is unapologetically long, and also they have full lips, whereas the Greco Roman one has smaller lips in all from height to width, and the nose is unapologetically narrow. Now, I can't say much about the eyes except that, you can't really tell between these two races, what someone's breakdown is. But if I was to focus on the hair again, notice how this wig, and again, Egyptian scholars say this is a wig. So let's go with what they say. Notice how that this wig, quote unquote, is coarse. It's not soft, and notice how it's layered. It's big. The braids are not small and thin. They're huge. They almost look like they're eating the person's head. And from this view, you wouldn't tell that it's hair. So I would have to zoom out a little bit. But if you notice the Greco-Roman one, the features are the feature of the hair is way wavy and way curly. To further illustrate this point, I shall bring another statue of a Egyptian queen. And as you can see from the side, she's got full lips, brown skin, but let us look at her hair. You see how thick it is? And at the bottom, that's where the strands or braids start to triple out and become thinner. This hair is not thin. It's not like small braids. They're very thick hair. It's very thick plaited hair put on one on top of each other in a very elaborate pattern. And this is not a sometime style. Like almost all the time when you see ancient Egyptian women portrayed, they're portrayed with this hair. And the only exception is when they're portrayed with very short hair. And when they're portrayed with very short hair, the short hair looks like a tiny buzz cut or something like that. And again, it looks like black African hair. Never, ever, even once do you see the hair of the ancient Egyptians portrayed as wavy or smooth or anything like that. Now, let's continue to compare the females from these two places. Now, here's something that I will do. I will show two women of middle age. Both of these women clearly have sharp contrasts. One, the broad nose of the woman who is Egyptian, which is Queen Tai, which I will show a different picture of her so we can get how her hair looked like. And by the way, these statues, I chose them by how similar they looked to the other one, even though they're of a completely different culture. And certain things jump out at you immediately. Queen Tai's lips are huge compared to the Greek woman's lips. The Greek woman still has lips, you can see them, but they're very tiny, they're very small. And again, the people who made these statues were familiar with ancient Egyptian art. So if they wanted to, they could have mimicked it. And you see the shape of the ancient Egyptian lips. They've got this straightforward thing about them, whereas the Greco-Roman ones have this, I would say, a Greco-Roman common feature. I've seen that a lot on Arabs and Eastern Europeans like Greeks, Italians, Syrians, this type of look. If I told you that the woman, the Greek woman, was a Middle Eastern woman, that you would believe me instantly because they have that look as well. So the reason why I'm showing you this, and obviously I need to switch to the one with hair, is to show you that it's not a once off thing and it's not a one and done thing. And I will return to that first image of the yellowy woman and I will show you how her facial features match every other Egyptian woman rather than matching foreigners like this Greek woman. And like I said, I chose these two statues because they are similar to each other. And if you notice the hair of the Egyptian woman, Queen Tai, even though it's a afro and it's in like a similar style to what the Greek woman is doing, you will notice a couple things. One, her hair um, is all the way close by her neck and everything. Secondly, you will notice that it doesn't have elaborate patterns on it. You notice how they put elaborate patterns on stuff. This thing here, the hair that she's adorning here, doesn't really have elaborate patterns. And if you show the Greek woman, you can see how it's all like wavy and stuff. But when they were doing the dreaded hair, the let's say braided hair, they had all these elaborate stuff on it. So let me show one more of Queen Tai's hairdos while she was still alive. Now, if you look at the hair of Queen Tai in this statuette, it shows the hair to be exactly the same as all the other hair that you've seen. And this is her portrayal while she was alive. You notice that her skin color is unapologetically brown. You notice that everything about this statue, even though she looks a bit different than what she looked like in the other ones, everything about this statue still screams ancient Egypt. Now, again, this could be just because they're just following tradition, but it's fair to assume that her hair would have looked like this in her life, in her real life. She must have had multiple hairstyles in her real life because we do see her being portrayed with multiple, but all of them are the ones that I've shown you an afro and dreadlocks, maybe even a shaven head at one point, if you agree with the wig concept of the scientists. While the features of the Greco-Roman does not match Queen Tai, it almost matches perfectly with Nofret. And this facial feature of Nofret, to me, is the best evidence that Nofret is actually a black woman being portrayed in yellow. And the fact that their hair is almost never portrayed in a different way than what I'm talking about, to me, just shows that they are black people. And of course, some people can deny this and say they have wigs on. Nofret is white or whatever you want to pick. And you could say all of that other stuff. But think about one thing. I've shown you brown skinned women when people claim that the women were yellow. I've shown you coarse hair when people claim that their hair was fluid. And I've shown you that the ancient Egyptians had broad lips, broad noses. Almost every feature they have is comparable to Africans. And this is only a small piece. Africans are right next to them, they live very close to Egypt. So you have even geographical evidence and all kinds of stuff. I feel like too many people compare the Middle Easterners to the statues of Nofret, but just by one glance, you can see that her lips are almost thicker than normal Africans. And of course, if you look at all the other statues, they also have very thick lips and they encompass Africa in the most true way. And the people I'm comparing them to aren't even East African. The people I'm comparing them to are really Southwest Africans, Southern Africans for the most part of the Bantu clade.